Hello everyone and welcome back. In this class I will explain how the system of areas and editors works, and Blender's workspaces system. It is quite likely that some of you already have enough familiarity with these interface systems. But sometimes some users come to dominate many advanced aspects of Blender, without knowing how these features of the interface work. Then, so everyone can follow the course classes, I'll explain everything we'll need to know about the interface to use the Compositor. When we open the Blender standard scene, we can see that the interface is divided into some components. These components are called editors. The editors that appear in the default Blender interface are the 3D view, the timeline, the outliner, and the properties editor. Each editor is contained in a space we call area. If we put the cursor over the line that divides each of the interface area, we will see that the cursor will have a double arrow. When this happens, we will be able to click and drag to dimension these areas vertically or horizontally. In addition to being able to scale each area freely, we can also choose which editor each of these areas will contain. All editors have a header, which is this bar at the top. And in the left corner of header, we can see a button, which opens a menu called Editor Type. If the editor you are using is in a very small area, it may be that the header does not appear entirely on the interface. And if this happens, you may not be able to view the Editor Type menu button. When this happens, you can position the cursor over the header and tighten the middle mouse button. With the middle mouse button pressed, you can drag the header to one side and to the other until you find the button or the menu you are looking for. In the Editor Type menu, we can choose which editor that will be used in this area. We can, for example, put the 3D view editor in all areas. And we can go back to the original editors through that same menu. In the standard interface, the upper left area is the 3D view. The lower left area is the timeline. The upper right area is the outliner. And the lower right area is the properties editor. In addition to being able to resize the areas and choose the content of them, we can also split these areas the way we want. There are two ways to do this. One of them is putting the cursor exactly on the division that exists between two areas. Right-click and click on Vertical Split to split the area vertically. Or click Horizontal Split to split the area horizontally. If we want to join two areas, excluding one of them, we can position the cursor on the division between the areas. Right-click and click on Join Areas. When we click on this Join Areas option, we can choose which of the two areas will be excluded. Note that the cursor gets the icon of a different arrow after we click on the command. When the cursor is like this, just click on the area that you want to delete so it disappears. Another way to divide and join the areas is through the corners of each one. If we position the cursor at any of the corners of one of the areas, we will see that the cursor icon will become a cross. When the cursor is like this, we can click and drag to the center of the area to create a split. If we click and drag to the side, we will create a horizontal division. And if we click and drag vertically, we will create a horizontal division. If we click and, instead of dragging to the center of the area, we drag to the other area, we will be able to join the two areas, excluding one of them. Some people like this system to split and join areas through the corners. But if you find it confusing, remember that you can split and join the areas by clicking with the right mouse button on the line that divides the interface areas. All this system of areas and editors serves so that we can configure the interface with the editors that we need for each stage of the production process. So, if at some point in production I need to set up the materials of the scene, and do not need to set anything related to animation, for example, I could expand this area where the timeline is, and could change the timeline to a shader editor in the Editor Type menu. With this I could set up the materials through the shader editor and view the result in the 3D view. In addition to being able to configure the default interface with the editors that we need for each moment, we can also use Blender pre-configured workspaces. Workspaces are these tabs we can see at the top of the Blender interface. Each tab is configured with editors that are usually used for the production step corresponding to the purpose of the tab. Then, on the UV Editing tab, for example, we have a 3D view and an UV editor. On the Shading tab we have a 3D view and a shader editor. Just as we will find in the other tabs the most suitable editors for the task related to the tab. And, in addition to being able to use these existing tabs, we can also create and set up our own workspaces with the editors and the layout that we want. In the next class, we will see how we can configure the interface to work with the Blender Node's composition system. So, this is it for the class. Thank you for watching, and I see you next time.